Hi, my name is Beth and I'm the sewing pattern designer and blogger at Sew DIY. In today's video, I'm going to talk about how to care for your handmade garments. This is the first in a series of videos about sustainability. So sustainability is something that's really important to me, and I'm always looking for ways that I can lessen my impact on the environment and lower my consumption rates. So I'm really excited to start this series and share some of my tips and findings with all of you. So in today's video, I'm going to share my top 6 tips for taking care of your handmade garments and making them last longer. Because we all know when things last longer, you need fewer things and less stuff ends up in the landfill. Let's get started. So my first tip is to sew garments that are going to last you a long time. So the first way to do that is to select fabric that's going to really hold up to some wear and tear. So just fabric that's a little bit stronger, that will be less likely to rip or just to wear down and get holes in it. For example, I made some pants that were out of like a cotton twill, and they've lasted for years, and I've worn them a ton and washed them a ton, and they still look brand new. Whereas I made a pair of pants out of tencel twill last year, and they're already showing a lot of wear. So something to think about if you want your clothing to last a long time is to buy really sturdy fabrics that can withstand a lot of beatings. The second part about sewing for longevity is to finish your clothing. So finish your seams. I have a video about ways to finish your seams. So when you don't finish your seams, the fabric can just start to unravel. So that's why it's so important to really take care and be careful and thoughtful when you're making your garments, that you're doing it in a way that's really going to make them last a long time. Tip number 2 is to be gentle when you wash your clothing. So the more that you wash your clothing and like the more heavy duty of a cycle that you use, the more wear and tear you're going to put on it, and the more likely that it's going to fray and get holes and wear out. So I recommend washing on as gentle a cycle as possible and using as gentle a soap as possible. And if you are able to, hand washing is a really, really great way to make your clothes last a long time. When you hand wash, there's just less abrasion happening to the fabric, so you're less likely to get pills or see wear in the seam. So hand washing is amazing if that's something that you're able to do. In my old house, I had a spare bathroom with a bathtub, and just most of the time I would have my drying rack set up in the spare tub, and it was great because it made hand washing and drying so easy and accessible because I had it set up all the time. So tip number 3 is along those lines, and it is to wash your clothes less frequently. So I think a lot of times we think, oh, I've washed or I've worn this thing once, like it's dirty, I need to wash it. But we kind of don't need to wash things as frequently as we sometimes do. And the less that you wash your clothing, the less wear and tear it will have, and also the less water you're going to use, which is also really great for your impact on the environment. So if you can reduce the number of washes, you're going to up your sustainability factor. A couple ways to make your garments last a little longer between washing is you can just hang them up and let them air out a little bit if they've picked up some odors, or spritz them with a mixture of water and vodka. And vodka and water is really amazing. It just takes odors right out. It's kind of magical, and it doesn't degrade the fabric in my experience. Tip number 4 is to limit your drying time. So as much as possible, if you can hang your clothing to dry, you're going to make it last longer. Also, if you use low heat or no heat, your clothing is going to last longer. So I live in a really humid environment and it can take a really long time for my clothing to dry. And what I'll often do is just dry it for a little bit, like 10 or 15 minutes on medium or low, and then I transfer to a drying rack to dry the rest of the way. And I found that this is really helpful and it works great. Tip number 5 is to store your clothes carefully. So pretty much this means anything that is made out of knit fabric, like a sweater or a t-shirt or a knit dress, needs to be folded and put in a drawer or stacked somewhere, and things that are woven should be hung on a hanger in your closet. So the reason for this is when you put a t-shirt or a sweater on a hanger, gravity is going to pull that fabric down and it's going to stretch it out of shape, and you might even get like dimples or divots in the shoulders of your garment from where it's been sitting on the hanger. And sometimes the fabric will be able to go back to the original shape and sometimes it won't. So storing your fabric or storing your clothing in a way that really takes care of it while it's waiting for you is really important. The other thing is if you have a garment like a strappy dress, then you might want to look for alternative hanging methods, because a strappy dress, especially if it has a big skirt, it's going to be really heavy on those thin straps. So if you have some sort of garment, like usually a dress, and the straps are just like a little too thin to bear the weight of the rest of the garment while it's hanging, you can add lingerie straps into kind of the armpit hole that will go over the hanger while it's hanging. Or you could just fold your dress in half and put it over the hanger and hang it folded in half. The other great thing about hanging your woven garments is that they're going to have fewer wrinkles because they're hanging up, and if your closet is not quite as full as mine, they'll have a little bit of breathing room and they'll just be a little happier because they won't be squished in, and and you will have to do less ironing. Tip number 6 is to mend your clothing. There's a ton of great inspiration out there right now for visible mending, and I love that this has become so popular. So it's important to make sure to mend your clothing as soon as you see a hole or a tear, because the longer you let it go, the bigger that hole or tear is going to get and the more your fabric's going to get worn out. So if you have something that needs some mending, I recommend looking up some visible mending techniques and giving that a try. I hope that these tips were helpful for you. If you have any questions or other ideas or questions about sustainability and sewing, let me know in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you can hit the subscribe button below and then hit the little bell to be notified about future videos. Happy sewing!